Hey, welcome, Christian Men Unscripted. I'm your host, Alan Underwood. I'm here with my co-host, John Harney. I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to be like on that Saturday Night Live video. Welcome to Sweaty Ball.
Yeah, the sweaty chocolate.
Yeah. This is a Christian podcast.
Funny, I know. But that's a funny...
it is.
It's PG.
It is PG.
It's PG. It's not R. It's just funny, dude.
Yeah. Well, anyway, welcome back. Well, what are we going to talk about today, John? I think we were going to talk about heaven and hell, right?
Okay,
you just told me this like 2 seconds ago, and I forgot it.
I'm just prayed.
I'm all jacked up on pumpkin spice latte.
I know. I wish you would have got me one. We just prayed before we hit record, and we get done praying, and we're like, what are we going to talk about? And I said, I don't know. Like last week we talked about, my dad died and that kind of stuff, and I just did a Sunday service, kind of shared that experience with the church. Like, if God is real, then will he really show himself? And I shared he really did show himself with my dad's passing, and I've seen it over and over, yet I still have those doubts.
Right. And
right before we hit record, I said, I don't know, maybe let's talk about kind of heaven and hell, because since our last episode, I've had people reach out about cremation. Hey, by the way, more than one, but Will, my buddy, shout out to Will out there on the road all the time. He actually said, hey, I wouldn't mind talking about cremation if you have a few minutes. And but I've had that conversation with a few people.
And also like the soap that Will uses to wash himself.
And Will also sent me some body wash, bro, and told me to use a washcloth with it. So,
I told you.
It smells so nice, man. Oh, my gosh. Hey, Will, thank you for that. But so, yeah, he's one of the guys, and it reminded me that when my wife's grandmother passed away, she died like a few years back at 100 or 101, forgive me for, I think it was right after she was 100. So she lived this long, amazing life. And we got to go and bury her cremains. That's what it's called when you're cremated, is your cremains on the family property in New Mexico. And one of the members of my wife's mom's family are Seventh-day Adventists. And so like, hey, look, guys, if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, like, don't be offended or be offended. I don't know. I think if you're a Christian, we're believers. We can debate over certain doctrinal topics.
Yeah, at my church, we went through that. I've gone through like classes, and I've talked to my brother-in-law. He's like, there's so many different denominations. Yeah. I think there's negotiables and non-negotiables, what I've heard at my church. Like, the negotiables are stuff like that. Like, same with, I think Catholics are kind of got real, what's the word, strict rules.
Dogma. They call that dogma. Yeah.
But
or orthopraxy, right? Yeah. What do you do? Okay, so
negotiable, non-negotiable. The non-negotiable is that Jesus died on the cross for our sins and was resurrected. That's it, right?
I believe
that's
not
it.
Who
but that's
Jesus
the main,
is. Yeah, I believe it's non-negotiable to say the Bible is very clear that Jesus is God who became a human being. The uniquely born Son of God is actually saying that he became a human being because he was born with fully human yet still fully God, and that he went to a cross and was illegally, unfairly, brutally killed, but paying the penalty for your sins, for my sins. That is literally what the anointed one, the Messiah of the entire Old Testament was about, is that Jesus would die on the cross for us, and then he was buried and raised, and that's proof of the resurrection. All right, so... But let's go back to this.
Cremation.
Okay. So one of my wife's uncles was like, you can't be cremated because of the resurrection. So we all agree as Christians that if you're a believer that there will be a resurrection. Jesus resurrected to prove that we would all be resurrected. By the way, 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 5 is also saying that same thing. Like, Jesus Christ, by God's mercy, was resurrected to show us that there is life after death. Okay. And
I get where you're going with this now. As you're, and I don't know. I'm just, as you're saying it, it's like, let me see if I got.
Yeah, I was going to say, you go.
I want to see if I understand what you're getting at before you say it. That way, if you're cremated, you don't have that body to come back from.
Yeah.
Is that what they're trying to say?
That's right.
But what about ashes to ashes, dust to dust?
You're 100% correct.
Okay.
See, that's exactly what you're getting at. So people will, first of all, correct me if I am wrong, and I tell people this: be a noble-minded
if you're wrong on anything.
Well, then any listener, there are verses in the Bible that point out, like, to burn human remains on an altar to God is sacrilegious, is an abomination. Yeah. There are verses, I believe that's in Leviticus, but there is nothing in the Bible prohibiting cremation. Now,
right.
Heathens did do cremation. The reason why Christians, I guess let's call them modern post AD, right? Post I don't know, the early Christian church didn't do cremation because heathens and pagans did do cremation.
Okay.
And so somehow that kind of became like, we don't cremate, we bury because heathens cremate. But here's the thing, there's no biblical basis for that I'm aware of. That there's nothing that says you can't be cremated. And so people argue, well, what about, so my best understanding of when we die is that you are immediately, like the blink of an eye, face to face with the Lord. And there are many scriptures on that, but that's in spirit.
You get a new body.
Spirit. But your new body isn't until the rapture, the second coming of Christ, right? And the resurrection of the dead and all that apocalyptic post-tribulation stuff when we all get a new body, okay? So people who argue, well, if you're cremated, God can't fix your body because you got rid of it. Bro, what do you think happened to the bodies of the saints back 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago? You think their bones are still there? Dude, they are all the way back to ashes. They're all the way back to dust. And you know what I mean?
Let me tell you my thoughts. These are very biblical thoughts. Is that
why do I think
I'm claustrophobic?
I was going to say, why do I think you're not going anywhere biblical?
No, nowhere biblical. And I don't want, like, you see like horror movies and like people coming out and there's snakes going through their eye sockets, and I don't want all the creepy crawlies in there with me. I'm claustrophobic. I feel like I might be trapped there if like, hey, get me out of here. I can't do it, man. So that's why I want to be cremated.
Well, I just think cremation just makes the most sense because it just expedites the ashes to ashes, dust to dust process.
Okay.
Because my argument for those people who say, well, you can't be cremated, God has to put your body back together. Well, do you know how many Christians were burned at the stake, whose bodies were burned completely and piled and burned with fuel added to it, that they actually have almost nothing left? Yeah. And so those were Christian martyrs. Okay, so what about that? Or 9/11. All these Christians who they never did, it was superheated to where they were literally, and they were believers. More important, how about this? Those are kind of superficial arguments. The real argument is this. If you believe, Seventh-day Adventist, I don't care, whatever denomination, whatever you kind of believe and teach about whether you do cremation or you can't do cremation, or if you think it's because God can't resurrect your body, will you tell me one thing if you're that person? Do you believe the Genesis account of the creation, that God spoke and created the universe, all of the galaxies, planet Earth, everything, all things out of nothing? If you believe that, why would suddenly God be hamstrung or unable to resurrect your ashes wherever they are? By the way, if they're all the way down to just the atoms, right? The very atoms that God spoke and created. So you're saying God doesn't have the power to do that? He can do everything else. But for some reason, all of a sudden, he's like, oh, man, they got burned into ashes. God dang it. Does God say that?
God said, God dang it?
Yeah. I mean, because he's talking to himself. Do you know what I mean? Like,
he can say it.
Like, he's allowed. I'm just saying, like, is that what you think? I'm just wondering.
My other biblical thought on the being cremated is, will it hurt? It seems hot.
I think it's hot enough, fast enough.
So it's a catch-22, man, when it comes to these biblical thoughts I have.
God, why are you such an idiot, dude?
That's what I do, man.
I'm telling you. All right, but anyway, okay, so I think with the cremation.
I like how you were giving me advice yesterday, and I was like, nah, I'm not doing it.
Oh, my gosh, okay.
We're not going to talk about it.
Okay, maybe next episode. Oh, please remind me. Please remind me when we go to record another one. I want to talk about that because we're kind of on a death one right now.
Right.
We're on cremation. I don't want to change the topic yet to that.
Yeah.
What do you think about life after death? What are your thoughts on that? Because, share about that thing I brought up. I think it's pretty cool. We should talk about it. It's a life after death commentary. Mm-hmm. There's a book and a movie. How crazy is that?
Yeah, it's called Case for Heaven, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, the day before I talked to you yesterday, I have 2 Audible books left in my coins that you get because I canceled it.
Yeah.
I was like, let me get a book. And the first one to come up was Case for Heaven. I'm like, I'll get this one. I'll start listening to that when I walk the dogs. And I bought it. And then the next day you were telling me about it's on Amazon Prime. So now I don't even need to read it. I could just watch it.
Yeah, dude.
No, I did watch it. And it was pretty interesting about the Case for Heaven, And it's Lee Strobel.
Yep.
Case for Christ, right? And there's a part in there where this guy, there's always near-death experiences that people talk about, going to heaven, seeing the light, seeing their relatives, but then coming back to life. And I know some of them have been debunked that I've seen where people are like, no, they made that up, this and that. But Lee Strobel's a pretty legit guy. I don't think he would put some on there that was debunked. And so, I mean, there's people out there that want to make a buck. So they'll make, I think there was one that they did a movie on a kid who said he saw his grandpa, and that was the one that I'm thinking of.
Okay.
And it was debunked where they just had the kid make that up.
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah, which is sad, right? Because that's just a bad face on Christianity if you're claiming to be a Christian. Yeah.
But the other part that you don't hear about is the near-death experience, people going to hell.
Yeah.
And he has a couple of people on there where the one was weird. And I fell asleep right when he was talking last night because I was watching it with my wife and she snoring already. But he's like, oh, I was in the hospital and I was like, there was like a group of men guiding me somewhere and they're taking me to this place and they were all masked up and he's like, whoa, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And I fell asleep right there. So you tell me the rest because you've probably seen it.
Well, okay.
I'm going to watch the rest tonight, so I'll get back to you guys next week on the rest.
Well, because
it's on Amazon Prime, by the way.
Yeah, it's called The Case for Heaven, Amazon Prime. It's
right.
Well, it's a Lee Strobel, based on a Lee Strobel book. And I love the documentary, by the way. But it doesn't end with like a real definitive. To me, the argument wasn't definitive, like, wow, blow your mind, but it was really balanced. What I appreciated is they even showed that one Christian guy. He was an Christian artist. I can't remember his name, but how he kind of said, like, I
don't remember his name.
He sort of lost faith, and I was hoping they would kind of recover that by the end of the show. You said you fell asleep. They don't. They just kind of gave his perspective, which, by the way, we have argued, and I have said this before too, you can choose not to believe in God. You can choose not to believe in Jesus. You can choose not to believe in the Bible. But what I would tell you is, as a Christian, I genuinely have seen that God is big enough, His Word is strong enough, and holds up enough for generation after generation, that as much as you want to doubt it, God is big enough for you to doubt, but actually seek truth. At least seek truth. Don't just doubt because you want to doubt. At least seek truth because I believe it holds up to it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm not offended when they show a Christian guy who said, I lost faith. He sounds more agnostic now, I guess this guy does on that documentary.
Yeah.
He still sort of acknowledges God, but he's not sure about the heaven versus hell thing. That was really his commentary. Is I just don't know that there's a hell. Like that's a hard one for me to grasp kind of a thing, right? And so he sort of put that out there. He struggles with his faith. Something I'm paraphrasing. Point is, I believe you don't throw your brains in the trash. You actually can seek truth and seek to know, is this real or not? I've had the experiences like at my dad's deathbed where I pray for God's peace and presence, and I genuinely not only sense it, but see.
Yeah.
Many times now I've seen where, my dad, I asked God, won't you take him quickly? And he died within seconds. I did the same with my Meemaw this year also. I think I shared that story. And so to me, these are pretty big events.
Right.
Life and death.
We've been around death, and we've seen how things happen.
Yeah.
I wasn't around this one, but I was a friend of mine's mom who was dying. They weren't Christians. And this was a while back. This was before I would even consider myself a Christian. And they're like, oh, my mom was, she was passing away or whatever. And she was older. And she's in her hospital room. And I told you this yesterday. And she's like, there's spiders everywhere. There's spiders all over the wall. And I remember him telling me that. And I was like, ooh, buddy, I think your mom might have been going to the wrong spot. I didn't tell him that. This is in my head, but I'm like, if I'm in my deathbed and I'm seeing like spiders everywhere, I'm like, this is not a good sign.
Yeah.
But I've also been around family and friends who were Christian, and we talked about it probably last year. A friend of mine, her mom died, and like the prayers, the church community, that came around and prayed for her to get the whole family there, and just the mom who was supposed to be. Might not make it through a surgery, but pulled through and was talking to people and waited for the whole family to get there, and then passed away, I would say somewhat peacefully. I'm not sure. I don't remember that part of it, but I think at the final moments it was peaceful. But just to see God moving in that room, and I wasn't in the room, but I was told the story where she has family that's not believers, and they were like, wow, that was God working, and they seen it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I told you the story about my brother-in-law. I talked about him on the last podcast. He came over and I said, hey, I was talking about you on the podcast. and my niece was with him. And I was like, he goes, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm just talking about how you're going to end up in hell and with your whole family. And then my niece was there and he goes, man, Mallory, your uncle just damned you to hell. And I go, no. There's still time.
Yeah,
I love them both.
Yeah, you'll get to know Jesus.
But he's like, well, I'm a good person. I'm like, yeah, good for you, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good people in hell.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Oh, I hate that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that is funny you did that.
But he is a good person. I do love my brother-in-law. So if you're listening, Jason.
You love your niece.
I definitely love my niece. And there's time for her. My brother-in-law's too late. No, I'm just kidding.
It's never too late.
It's never too late.
Okay, so back to it's interesting, right? Back to that documentary. What I did find interesting is he talked about exactly what you just said. one of the guys on there, and forgive me, I can't remember his name. I want to say his last name is Burke. He started writing a book maybe in the 80s, and he said that 1 in 26 Americans and upwards of 1 in 10 Europeans, for some reason, claim to have a near-death experience. And what I found interesting is what you just talked about. He said that if they have interviewed, again, I'm butchering this, but the guy basically has interviewed like over 10,000 near-death experience, people who have gone through that near-death experience thing, right? All over the world. And he said culture-wide, and I know there's more in the book, but basically, doesn't matter where you're at in the world, the people who have these near-death experiences, it's almost one of two. It's like a 50-50. There's very rarely anything in between. Like the evidence is so overwhelming.
Like a purgatory type thing.
Well, no, it's like it's either people have that sense of like the light and family and Jesus.
And love, like a sense of love.
And it's a huge percentage that they actually will say it's Jesus, even those, by the way, he shared a story that was in particular an atheist Jewish girl, I don't know if you remember that one. Yeah. That's a pretty famous one, I guess, that just knew it was Jesus. And though she was taught her whole life, like even though we're cultural Jews, we don't believe in God. Yeah. But she said, I remember praying my whole life and realizing it was Jesus I was praying to. And so he says basically that, okay, people have this light near, the light and the comfort, and that they just have this sense of love and forgiveness, though they're kind of more judgmental of themselves. Apparently that is a huge percentage of a shared positive experience. It's the negative one, the spiders around you, the guy who was getting taken down the dark hallway. They said that is the more interesting phenomenon.
Also a horror movie, Drag Me to Hell.
Is it? See?
Yeah. Well, I've never watched it. I've never even heard of it. Because it's Halloween, there's a lot coming up.
Tons of them. But I mean, that's the point. The interesting part, like Lee Strobel said, is why would... Like, you have nothing really to gain these huge percentages of people who have this, and then they're like, ooh, I don't want to go there. And many of them actually become Christians. They're like, okay, Jesus is God. Some of them are pastors to this day, one of the guys on that. Mm-hmm. But he said it's an interesting thing that they have the shared experience of darkness and evil. And he went on to explain that, we all know the Bible talks about heaven and hell. But a point that I found interesting is he said hell is varying degrees. Most of the language in the Bible is metaphorical, like the lake of fire, the darkness, the gnashing of teeth. But he said it seems to be in their interviews that everyone sort of had a sort of a different, sort of a personal, but a very dark experience. And went on to say, like the grandma who's a nice enough lady or whatever, but she refused to accept Jesus. She's just a massive atheist, but not a bad lady. Mm-hmm. Her experience in hell would be different than Adolf Hitler's, for instance. Right. And I kind of like the thought on that.
Hers would be like a sense of loneliness. I never believed in Hitler's being ripped apart every day.
Yeah, something, exactly. And he said, but he explained that is biblical and sort of explained some of that. I just found that it's interesting topic anyway. You know what I mean?
It's definitely an interesting topic. And there's I was at the gym a couple weeks ago and talking to this guy. Well, he was talking to somebody else, but I was spotting somebody, and he was talking about he's watching these videos on near-death experiences, and there was a pastor. He was a Reformed gang member who was still a pastor, who had been like pastoring the church in the hood, per se, and pastoring young men or whatever. And he was at the mall, and he saw this guy who remembered him from when he was in the gang, and he was like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, didn't think nothing of it, and went to the parking lot, and the guy shot him for retaliation from decades earlier, probably. And he was in the hospital, and when he said he was in the hospital, he was taken down to hell while he was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And it had something to do with like you said, like the Hitler part, where he was this like agony, torture, getting his limbs ripped off and being thrown in a garbage can and like crawling out of it, and just bodies everywhere. And then he ended up coming back to life in the hospital room and waking up and was like, what in the world was that?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's that. Are you a pastor? Do you have that 100% faith as a pastor? And so he's like, I was doing it all wrong. I was just doing it for like, what I say is like an insurance policy. And I got that from Charlie Kirk, actually. He goes, our religion is not an insurance policy.
Yeah.
And I think some people look at it like that. And you said something yesterday that caught my attention big time, and I haven't talked to you about it, but we have that doubt, right? We put that doubt, like everybody has doubt. Like my brother-in-law said, I'm a good person. Well, okay, yeah. But it's just a mustard seed of faith.
Yeah.
And I know I have that. Mm-hmm. But there's that doubt that creeps in all the time. It's like, okay, there's an eternity, right? Because if we're going to die, there's an eternity. Where do you want to go? So you got to have that mustard seed of faith. And I didn't have that until I decided to read the Bible, until I decided to pray to the Lord. So I decided to say, hey, can you change this in my life? Can you do this for me? It sounds selfish, but it did happen.
Yeah.
And so now I was talking to a guy at church today about being a part of a deacon ministry, and he was asking me, he goes, why do you want to do this? I go, I love serving people. It helps me become a better Christian, and it helps them also, you know?
Yeah.
So there's that mustard seed of faith, right? But that doubt always creeps in because we're human beings.
Yeah.
So you said that. I meant to tell you that earlier.
Well, it's just funny, right? I think I don't remember exactly how or why I put that out there when I was talking.
It was real quick. You go fast.
Yeah, I do go fast. I thought I went slow.
Absolutely not.
But I really will say that, like, you guys, like, it's the truth. You see that one guy who's talking to Jesus in the Bible, and I'm being...
I believe it was after you said you shouldn't be the pastor of this church.
Might have been. But I got to quit saying that. But the guy's like, Lord, I believe, but help me in my unbelief. Mm-hmm. And so even though I'm the pastor of a church, even though I spend hours a day, I mean, quite honestly, I'm not, a few hours a day at a minimum in the Bible, in prayer and in the Bible, and studying and commentary and and all these things. I've had amazing answered prayer in my life. I still have to say, Lord, I believe, but help me in my unbelief, because we're called to believe in an invisible God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a faith thing.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, right? Like, I love how Jesus said that to his disciples. You get to see me, but blessed are those who are going to believe, who aren't going to be face to face with me when he was with his apostles. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've forgotten all those.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'll get it back.
Well, it was awesome for you not to cut me off. So now cut me off next time you can.
Because,
all right. Well, anyway, look, in summary, my prayer is, let's get back to
old, man. I can't remember things.
Let me go back to what I was talking about.
Oh, I got it.
Go ahead.
My brother-in-law, who I was talking about, man, I should get my brother-in-law on the podcast.
Yeah, let's get him on here.
He makes a point, and I understand where he's coming from. He goes, well, why is there so many religions? Why is there Mormons? Why is there Hindu? Why is there Jewish? Why are the Jewish not going to heaven? Why, what makes you guys so confident? That's his argument, and I get it. Yeah. I understand what he's saying. He goes, well, and then he goes all the denominations of Christianity.
Sure. And
that goes into the negotiable thing. Mm-hmm. But then I get where he's talking about like the Hindus, like the Muslims, like the Mormons. He goes, the Mormons are Christian. And we go, well, no. Yeah. I mean, I get where they're coming from. I think they're great people. I think they're just misguided on their religion. Yeah. Somehow, some way they got into that family. But I know a lot of people who are Mormons who are not Mormons anymore.
Yeah.
But that's his argument. That's what I was going to, if you want to go into that a little bit too.
Okay, I will.
We only got a small.
I know, we only have a few minutes. That's a big conversation, but actually I'll give it to you quickly and in summary. It's this. If logically, and it does make sense that there is a God and there is a creator, all you got to do is look at the universe. I mean, look at the way the earth is. We've talked about that before, with the recycling of water, the way the planets work, the way the sun and the earth is like this perfect spaceship for us. Okay. Everything works more accurately than any clock or any watch ever devised by human beings. Just our body alone, just our eyeball alone, right? There's all these arguments. And so the Bible itself says that men are without excuse by simply looking around at their environment and not knowing that they are created and there is a creator. Okay. But whatever, you can argue, that's between you and God if you want to not look around and be like, no, it's all random.
No, and I believe that a lot of people believe that.
Yep.
That goes into the agnostic thing.
Exactly. Well, and it goes into like, well, which religion is true, right?
Correct.
So then you start to say, okay, if there is only one creator, because a lot of people try to argue, which is sort of the Mormonism thing as well, not to offend any of our Mormon friends, man, I love them. I love my neighbors, and some of my very best friends. But here's the thing, what the Bible says is there is one God. Mm-hmm. Literally, the very first verses of the Bible say there is one God.
Part of the 10 Commandments.
And the language says that. And so what it also says is, if you understand the Bible over and over, God is perfect. God is completely perfect, completely loved, completely just, absolute, complete, lacking nothing. Mm-hmm. Now, what does that mean? It means if you want to look at a picture of religions all over the world, if we can say, okay, there's a creator, there's a God, and he must be perfect. He's perfect. If there is one God and he is perfect, there can't be another God who is also perfect, because one would have an attribute that the other does not have. That's logic, thereby making neither of them perfect. So if there's one perfect God, we'd have to agree there can be only one God, and that eliminates immediately every religion on planet Earth except for Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Those are the only three major religions that say there is only one God who always has been, always will be. That seems the most logical fit. It even, unfortunately, will eliminate some of the American religions that use the name of Jesus, like if we're talking Mormonism and stuff, because some of those religions teach that there are many other gods and other planets and other universes. Well, you can sort of do that. Scientology does that, and it never ends. You can just say, well, it's just always for eternity. There's been seeds of humans planted and seeds of planets, and
yeah.
okay, well, when did it all start? Well, it just never did. No, now you're talking about eternity again. You see what I'm saying? We're right back to the eternal argument.
Right.
Okay. So all of those three major religions say there is only one God, okay? However, when you start to really quickly break that down, what you start to say is, okay, well, how do I know this God? All right? How do we get to know who he is? Is he just a God who just kind of created us and steps away, or is he a God who is relational? And then what type of proof is there of this God? Well, right away you start to look at some differences in Islam and Christianity, and here's some of them. And Judaism, by the way, as well. Judaism and Christianity match. Now you can narrow down, because what they say is this God is relational, who created all things, and you have different people. That's what the 39 books of the Old Testament. Let's just talk Old Testament, which is Christianity and Judaism. And by the way, Islam believes in a lot of the biblical stuff as well.
Correct.
And so what you have in the Bible are different people talking about the same God, talking about circumstances and this Messiah to come, the anointed one to come, and the relationship. But they're all different people, different over thousands of years, in different places, in different spaces, okay? Islam, on the other hand, has one guy who had an experience in a cave that no one really knows where it is, and I'm not bashing. There's some wonderful guys of integrity there as well. But as a religion, it says one person was given all the information to kind of say how it all is now.
Muhammad?
Yes, exactly. Okay, and so similar again, like to Mormonism or Jehovah's Witness, where one person, right, like Joseph Smith, was given this special revelation. The Bible actually says there is no one person who's constantly given special revelation. Yes, Moses met with God, but so did Elijah, so did Elisha, so did, you know what I mean? In other words, all these prophets. Yeah, exactly. Abraham, name it, right?
Yeah, right.
The point is, different people, David, having different experiences, some literally face-to-face, if you will, the burning bush experience type of stuff, some by revelation, through vision, through dream, but they're all unified in this one God. And so to me, that's better evidence.
Right.
But then you also have the archaeology and the history and the eyewitness accounts, and then you fast forward to, okay, Jesus, undeniably, we know by the fact that it's 2025 that Jesus clearly existed. The entire world calendar is set on Jesus.
Right.
Hospital systems, university systems, eyewitness accounts written about Jesus within only months to years of his existence, his death, and his resurrection. Yeah. Literally, the Journal of American Science and Medicine has actually said, like, yes, Rome crucified thousands of people, but there is no documentation of one single human being ever surviving it. And there are all these extra biblical accounts, that means outside of the Bible, Josephus and Tacitus, all these people, who wrote about Jesus, who everybody thought was God. They made fun of it in a way. They weren't Christians. And they said, but yet this Jesus guy was killed, and now the Christians claim they've seen him alive. And that's what the Apostle Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, where he says, you guys, you can go interview the living witnesses. They're alive right now. There are hundreds of them. Jesus existed. So the evidence, as you keep cutting things out, comes down to, wow, we have to admit Jesus existed. I think you're a fool to say he didn't.
Right.
And I think the evidence says that there is an empty tomb. The early Jewish leaders, when his body first disappeared, they made up, hey, they must have stolen his body. That's right. What do you call that? That's passive admittance that the tomb was empty, but hundreds of eyewitnesses saw him. And so the evidence, and then archaeology and history just consistently shows all these people were willing to die for this. And I'm sorry for taking so long, but the bottom line is,
no, I like it.
To me, that starts to narrow that down. Now, the argument of denominations, that's a whole different conversation. That comes to interpretation of doctrines and application of doctrines, and then church traditions. And to me, that turns into kind of a lot of mucky it up garbage.
And that's like I said, negotiable, non-negotiable. And there's pretty much very few non-negotiables. Yeah. When it comes to the Bible, I think. Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes we can get it wrong. But also know, and real quick, we're going to wrap it up. But I don't know if it's somebody told me. It might have even been my brother-in-law. I'm doing 2 podcasts about this sucker all of a sudden. But he helps me out a lot, so thanks, Jason.
Jason's awesome.
But like people say, okay, God is here. And then you trickle down, you have all these religions, Mormon, and they're all going to find their way to God. He goes, no, you had it wrong. I'm going to tell you what's happening, right? But the Bible doesn't say that. But a lot of people who don't read the Bible think, okay, I'm a good person. Yeah. I do believe in God. I don't know where he is. Well, that's why, people say, hey, Jesus is coming back. Well, he's not coming back until the gospel is preached to everybody, to all parts of the earth, to people who don't know him. Yeah. So we still have to do that. But in America, you've been told.
Oh, yeah.
In Europe, you've been told. In, Saudi Arabia, You've been told. You're going the wrong way, but you've been told.
Yeah.
You understand. They know. They believe in Jesus. They believe Jesus was a prophet.
Yeah.
But they took Muhammad as not even their Messiah. It wasn't him.
A prophet.
A prophet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because they talk, believe it or not, the Quran talks more about Jesus than about Muhammad or anything else.
So, I mean, and then that's where I think people, I'm like, no, that's 100% wrong. Because I used to think that. I'm like, I'm a good person. I believe in God, but we're all going to go there some way. One path will always lead to it. And then as I read the Bible, I'm like, oh, no, there's no other gods before me. I am the one true God. Jesus is the Messiah. He was resurrected. Without the resurrection, it's not.
But I love the analogy. You just showed like a mountaintop and all these religions trying to climb up to God. Isn't that what Christianity is? Is God himself. John 3:16, God gave his only uniquely born son. That means he took on humanity and he came down the mountain. You kind of gave a picture of everybody going up the mountain to get to God.
Yeah.
God himself came down the mountain to us. There's nothing we can do to achieve it. We don't earn it. We don't deserve it. That's Ephesians 2:8-9. God himself came, manifest himself, said, hey, I'm going to meet with those who society doesn't want to meet with, the lepers, the unlovable, the adulterous, the prostitutes, the tax collectors. In other words, the worst of society, God sees and loves, and he says, I'm trying to reach them all. And that's why he walked on this earth, gave up his throne for, what do we call it, for the trough, for being homeless, for camping out and being persecuted and spit on and ultimately going to a cross and paying the penalty for our sins. That's who Jesus is. And he's like, man, I did that because I love you. And then our inheritance is secure because of the resurrection. Life after death. This is an episode on life after death. We've talked about it. Yeah. I mean, let's talk about cremation, things like this.
Yep.
Our body, where does our body go? Where does our soul go? Well, the body says, if the Bible says, if you believe in Jesus, the moment you die, you're face to face with the Lord. You're in a spirit body until the resurrection of your body, which is a different thing. We have a new body. There's going to be a new heavens and a new earth. That's all future.
Can I get 6-pack abs?
I'm putting in that request for you.
Thanks. Yeah. And hair. More hair.
Yeah, nice hair. You're going to look like, remember Fabio, dude?
Yeah.
Fabio. We're going to see each other in heaven. I'm like, dang, bro.
That's what you chose?
That's crazy.
Good job, man.
But anyway,
and
man.
I want an accent, too.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. I want a better voice. You have the people, we get it all the time. Alan has a really nice, deep voice. You sound like a rabbit.
But they can't hear me half the time. They're like, you're too low. I'm like, it's the microphones.
Well, it's because you get all up in the microphone. And
welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyway, I genuinely believe there is life after death. I believe all of us will meet Jesus. My prayer for you is you humbly accept Jesus before that chance, before that.
Yeah, Jason.
Post-death meeting. But I also believe, I'm not mad at you if you don't believe. I'm not mad at you if you love whatever religion you love. And I'm going to continue to pray for you. Don't be mad at me for that. But I also pray that you would question your faith, question your lack of faith, question your own religion, really look into it with an open heart and an open mind, and I believe, whatever religion you are, I believe the Bible, the God of the Bible, and Jesus of the Bible will stand up to any investigation that you genuinely put your heart to. Mm-hmm. And so I say, go ahead and do the investigation for yourself. But there is life after death.
Yep. Wrap it up there, man. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Be blessed.
Eric